My journey with faith has always been a part of my life, a gentle hum in the background of my days. From my earliest memories I knew of God's love. I learned the stories of His grace and mercy in Sunday school classrooms, filled with colorful drawings and felt-board figures. This foundation was a precious gift, a bedrock laid down by my family. It taught me that I was a child of God, loved and cherished. Yet, like a seed planted in shallow soil, my faith didn't always have the deep roots it needed to withstand the storms that life would eventually bring my way. It was present, but not always powerful. As I grew older, the simple truths I had learned began to feel more complicated. The world presented challenges and questions that Sunday school answers couldn't easily solve. I found myself in a wonderful, caring Christian community that helped me grow. The people there were like a family. They prayed with me through difficult exams and celebrated small victories with genuine joy. Their support was a lifeline, showing me what it meant to live out one's faith in tangible ways. It was in their kindness and encouragement that I saw the face of Jesus most clearly, and my spiritual life began to blossom. However, a shift began to occur within the church I called home. The messages from the pulpit started to feel less like invitations to grace and more like political rallies. The sermons, once filled with stories of God's redemptive love, became tinged with partisan anger and division. It was confusing and disheartening. I came to church seeking solace and spiritual nourishment, a reminder of a love that transcends worldly conflicts. Instead, I often left feeling more anxious and disconnected, as if the very place I sought refuge had become another source of worldly noise and strife. This growing unease created a chasm between my heart and the church. The sense of belonging I had once treasured began to erode, replaced by a feeling of alienation. My attendance became less frequent, my prayers more sporadic. The spiritual drift wasn't a sudden event but a slow, quiet fading. It was like watching a shoreline recede, almost imperceptible at first, until one day I looked up and realized how far I had drifted from the land I once knew. The vibrant connection I had felt was now a faint echo, and a profound sadness settled over me. The decision to leave my church was one of the most painful I have ever made. It felt like walking away from family. I remembered the potlucks, the shared laughter, and the comforting hands placed on my shoulder in times of sorrow. To leave that behind felt like a betrayal, not just of a community but of a part of myself. The final Sunday I attended, I sat in the back pew, a silent observer of a place that no longer felt like my spiritual home. The grief was immense, a heavy cloak that I carried with me as I walked out the doors for the last time, into a spiritual wilderness of my own making. In the weeks and months that followed, a deep silence fell over my faith. Without the weekly rhythm of church services and the fellowship of believers, my connection to God felt tenuous. My Bible gathered dust on a shelf, and my prayers became few and far between. It was a period of profound loneliness. The distance I felt was not just from a building or a group of people, but from God Himself. I wrestled with feelings of guilt and abandonment, wondering if I had made a terrible mistake. The quiet was deafening, and in that silence my doubts grew louder and more persistent. This time of spiritual isolation was marked by a deep sense of personal failure. I felt I had let God down. I had walked away from His house and His people. How could He possibly want me back after I had so willingly strayed? The narrative I told myself was one of rejection. I imagined God turning His face from me, disappointed in my lack of perseverance. This belief kept me paralyzed, unable to seek a new path or even to whisper a simple prayer for guidance. I was lost, and I had convinced myself that I deserved to be. The world without a faith community felt colder, harsher. Everyday struggles seemed magnified without the comforting perspective of eternal hope. I navigated hardships on my own, relying solely on my own limited strength. It was an exhausting way to live. I missed the shared strength that comes from a community bound by faith. I longed for the simple act of hearing a hymn sung by a congregation or sharing a quiet moment of prayer with a friend. The absence of these small but significant rituals left a void in my life that nothing else could fill. My spirit felt parched and weary. Just when I felt most lost, a small act of kindness pierced through the darkness. My neighbor, a gentle soul named Sarah, noticed my quiet withdrawal. She didn't preach or judge. Instead, she brought over a plate of warm cookies and simply asked how I was doing. Her genuine concern was a balm to my wounded spirit. Over several conversations on her front porch, she shared stories of her own church, not with pressure but with a quiet, joyful confidence. She spoke of a place where grace was the central theme, where everyone was welcomed just as they were. Her friendship was a gift from God, a soft whisper that I was not forgotten. One sunny Saturday, Sarah extended an invitation. "We'd love for you to join us tomorrow," she said with a warm smile. "No pressure at all, but the invitation is always open." Her words were simple, yet they carried immense weight. For the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope. The thought of stepping into a church again was daunting, filled with the fear of being judged or feeling out of place. Yet, her gentle invitation felt less like a demand and more like a hand reaching out in the dark. It was a chance, a possibility of finding what I had lost. That night, I struggled with the decision. My feelings of unworthiness resurfaced, telling me I wasn't ready, that I needed to fix myself first before I could dare to enter God's house again. The old tapes of failure played in my mind. But then I remembered Sarah's kindness, the simple, unconditional friendship she had offered. It was a reflection of the very love I had been missing. God's love, I realized, wasn't waiting for me to become perfect. It was pursuing me, even in my brokenness, through the simple, caring heart of a neighbor. God's love had been there all along, a constant presence even when I couldn't feel it. It was in the morning sun, in the steady rhythm of my own breathing, and now it was in the form of a neighbor's kindness. His persistence was not loud or demanding, it was a gentle, relentless pursuit. He hadn't given up on me, even when I had given up on myself. The invitation to her church felt like an invitation to come home, not to a building but back to him. With a deep breath I decided to accept. I would go. Walking into that new church was an act of trembling faith. I expected to feel like an outsider, to carry the weight of my past failures into the sanctuary. But what I found was something entirely different. I was greeted with genuine smiles and warm handshakes. No one asked where I had been or why I had left my old church. They were simply glad I was there. The message from the pastor that morning was about grace, about the beautiful, messy truth that God meets us exactly where we are, not where we think we should be. It felt as if every word was spoken directly to my weary heart. This new community became my spiritual hospital. They didn't offer easy answers or quick fixes, instead they offered acceptance. They listened to my story without judgment and shared their own stories of struggle and redemption. It was here that I truly began to understand what it means to be part of the body of Christ. It isn't about being perfect, it's about being present for one another, carrying each other's burdens, and constantly pointing each other back to the cross. In their fellowship, I found the safety to be vulnerable and the strength to begin healing. My journey taught me that my personal failures do not change God's unchanging love. I had strayed, I had doubted, and I had hidden myself away in shame. Yet, his welcome was as sure and steady as the sunrise. He was not disappointed in me, he was waiting for me with open arms. The redemption I found was not something I earned through my return, it was a gift that had been waiting for me all along. My part was simply to turn around and accept the grace that had been pursuing me through my darkest days. Today, the phrase "come to Christ as you are" has a profound new meaning for me. It is not just a nice slogan, it is the cornerstone of my faith. It means coming with my doubts, my fears, my scars, and my imperfections. It means understanding that faith is not about achieving a state of flawless devotion, but about continually returning to the source of unconditional love and forgiveness. My journey back to Christ was not a straight line, but a winding path that ultimately led me to a deeper, more authentic understanding of His incredible, unending grace.